local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the special election 2022 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight, we feature a debate between the candidates for Maricopa County Attorney. Tonight's debate is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates for one of Maricopa County's most important offices. Dialogue between candidates is encouraged, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we will do our best to ensure that happens. Candidates will give opening statements in a randomly selected order, and later we'll give closing statements in the opposite order. And joining us now for tonight's debate, Democrat Julie Gunnigal, a former prosecutor and law professor, and Republican Rachel Mitchell, who is the current county attorney. She was appointed to the job earlier this year after the resignation of the former county attorney. Let's get things started with opening statements, and we begin with Rachel Mitchell.
Thank you, Ted. Good evening. My name is Rachel Mitchell, and I'm your Maricopa County attorney. I grew up and was born in this area, and this is my hometown. My priority for this office as the Maricopa County Attorney is making sure that our communities and our neighborhoods are safe. I've spent 30 years prosecuting cases. 25 of those years has been spent protecting specifically children from abuse and women and men from adult sexual assault. My opponent has a very different view of how the office should be run. She wants to defund the police. She wants to eliminate bail so that people can be free to commit additional crimes. And she wants to let criminals out of prison. My idea of justice is to hold people accountable. And I would ask you to vote for me in November. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And now the opening statement from Julie Gunnigal.
Good evening. I'm Julie Gunnigal, and I am none of the things that you just heard. I'm a wife, a mom, a Notre Dame trained attorney going on her 17th year of practice. And during my career, it was my honor to hold politicians accountable when they were stealing public funds. When I saw that the Supreme Court was taking up Roe v. Wade, I looked at my 2 young daughters and thought that something had to be done to protect women and children from being prosecuted for basic reproductive health care choices in our state. I'm running for my family and yours to clear up the legacy of corruption inside our county attorney's office, to hold people accountable, but to treat gun violence, addiction, and mental health as the public health crises that they are, because we do not need to choose between fiscal responsibility and community safety. You can learn more about me and my platform at Gunnigal2022.com.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get things started. Rachel, we'll start with you. The top issue for the county attorney's office: how much reform is needed in that office, and what exactly needs to be done?
You know, what was needed when I took over that office was leadership and a person who is present and communicating a vision to the office. That office is not corrupt as Ms. Gunnigal would portray it. That office is full of people who are self-sacrificing, hardworking public servants. But they needed a leader, and they needed somebody who was present and who could communicate a vision of what justice means. And what I have communicated to them is justice means doing right by somebody, whether that means putting them on a diversion program so that they can get help for their addiction, or whether it means taking them off the street because they've committed a violent act. That is what the office is about.
Is the office corrupt, and if so, what reforms are needed?
Well, in no particular order, what we've seen in the last just several years is an office that will politically prosecute people to silence their opponents. 180 cases go unprosecuted, and sweetheart deals to the wealthy, the powerful, and the well-connected, folks like Charles Ryan. No, this office is so out of step with national norms that if Arizona was a country, it would be the 8th largest incarcerator in the world. That's how out of step we are. And that's money that's largely going into our private prisons and not to our public schools. We need to get our priorities straight.
Is there over-incarceration? Is there over-prosecution in the county attorney's office?
Well, to address the protest cases, I actually was brought in after those cases were filed, and I reviewed them and made recommendations to the county attorney saying that they were overcharged. So I'm willing to look at cases with an open mind. But the vast majority of the cases in the office are not overcharged. They're handled appropriately. This office is so important to our community. It's important. We prosecute homicides, sexual offenses, domestic violence. We keep the community safe, and it does a good job.
Okay. Let's go to the 180 cases here. How much does a division chief, which Rachel Mitchell was at the time, how much supervision, how much authority, how much would they know about something like that in particular when it's a departmental problem? And obviously there was a communications problem, there was a lot of trouble there with the previous county attorney. How do you square that circle?
Well, first, it's not just the previous administration. It's so many previous administrations before that. And during the time, the 30 years that Rachel Mitchell has been part of that office, that legacy of corruption, that walking hand in glove with folks like Sheriff Joe Arpaio down this path that costs our taxpayers millions in settlements has just continued. And it's continued under our current county attorney as well. In the Glenn Robertson case, she chose to take up yet another political prosecution aimed at someone who said that Black Lives Matter during a traffic stop, and he was charged as a gang member. We can no longer afford a Rachel Mitchell style of justice that over-prosecutes and under-delivers for our community.
Why was there a gang
Ted, I have
charge
to
there?
respond to this. Glenn Robertson was not charged, and Julie has said this before, and she knows it's not true. Glenn Robertson was not charged because he said Black Lives Matter. Glenn Robertson claimed to be a member of the Crips, and he threatened a police officer with Crip action when she arrested him. He has been convicted in another case, and he's facing an additional case. And as far as the 30 years, what I'm hearing from Julie is she's saying she's going to hold underlings responsible for her decisions. We all know that the county attorney is the person who is in charge. When there were problems with the previous county attorney, I was one of the division chiefs who signed a letter saying step down. When Andy Thomas was in office, I was prosecuting child molesters and rapists. And as for Julie, at that same time, she was wrongly prosecuting a woman that she kept in jail for 18 months on an unconstitutional law that's not even a crime here.
Respond, please.
Happy to. First, a jury found exactly the opposite in Glenn Robertson's case and found him not guilty just a month ago. So I'm surprised to hear those statements here today. Second, I think it does start with leadership at the top. And I'm wondering what it says when the people who know the county attorney the best, the people who have worked with her for 30 years, are voting with their feet and leaving the office in droves. No, this administration is more of the same, and we need change and reform in this office that is evidence-based and data-driven.
Is there a retention problem at the county attorney's office, and is it a new problem?
They absolutely are voting with their feet. They're coming back to the office. We have reduced a 20% deficit of personnel when I took over. By the end of the year, it will be under 10% for prosecutors. We have had prosecutors come back from numerous offices across the Arizona because they know me, they trust me, they want to work for an office that's led by somebody with integrity, and they know I'm that person. They will leave if Julie Gunnigal gets elected.
As far as the gang charges, Rachel says that she fired the attorney involved, she took over the case, dismissed the charges, fired the attorney. Not good enough?
Not good enough if you continue down that path and take these sorts of cases to trial. The judge in Glenn Robertson's case said it was the weakest case they had ever seen before the court. This is more waste, this is more fraud, and this is more taxpayer dollars that just go into prosecutions that don't keep our community safe. What does keep our community safe is a prosecutor who's willing to get at the root cause of harm in our community, and that's tackling addiction and mental health head on.
Okay, last point on that.
That's a buzzword, root cause. What Ms. Gunnigal means by root cause is getting rid of cash bail, defunding the police. That is not going to keep our community safe. Glenn Robertson was found not guilty, and I respect the jury's opinion on that, but he has been found guilty in other cases. He is not an innocent player here.
But he was not, but was that the wrong thing to do to charge him in that case?
Absolutely not. He threatened the officer with being a Crip and taking action against her.
Let's talk about criminal justice reform. The quote is here, you want to redefine public safety. What does that mean?
Sure, it means that we actually get at the root cause of harm in our community. Here's what it looks like on the ground. It means that we stop these outrageously long sentences for drug crimes and direct people into treatment rather than into prison. Because we know that 97% of everyone in an Arizona prison will one day get out. They are our friends and neighbors, and unless they emerge more able to contribute to society, we are only continuing this cycle of recidivism that gets people rich who own private prison industries and private prison labor schemes. Just this last month, our county attorney defended a 16-year sentence for someone who was convicted of selling an ounce of marijuana, a substance that is now legal in Arizona. And those sorts of sentences, that one alone, cost taxpayers $330,000.
And I've got to respond to that.
Please.
Julie has repeatedly told that story and left out significant parts of it. You know, you can't play fast and loose with facts and be a prosecutor. That's not right. It's not a good look. That person had been convicted of armed robbery. He had committed 6 armed robberies in order to earn his way into a gang. Then he was on probation, and then he sold on multiple occasions marijuana. And by the way, it's still illegal to sell marijuana without a proper license. And yes, he was convicted.
Is that prosecutorial discretion here when you see someone who does X, Y, and Z, but also does A and B? A and B is obviously wrong, but it's not to the... Do you understand what I'm saying here? If someone has a past history and priors as described, does it not make sense to go a little tougher on them?
I mean, potentially, if they're going to receive treatment so that they don't reoffend, and that's one of the biggest issues in our criminal legal system. Right now, our recidivism rate consistently tops 50% in our state. And I look at it from the perspective of someone who also owns a small business. If my product failed 50% of the time, would I continue to throw $1.5 billion at it? And I think when we go after folks, especially when we claim that they're dangerous in the community, and I do dispute those facts, as does the New Times, but we should be holding them accountable for what's actually alleged. And in this case, it is a 16-year sentence for selling an ounce of marijuana.
When you redefine public safety and you want to criminal justice reform here, charge stacking, is that one of the things that you're looking at?
Absolutely.
Explain, please.
Sure. So the way our criminal legal system works, because we have gone down the path of things like mandatory minimums in Arizona, the prosecutor holds all the cards and holds them at an incredibly early stage of the criminal legal system process. It means that a prosecutor can stack charges so high that someone would be facing hundreds of years, and when they're faced with a plea agreement that says, oh, we'll settle for a misdemeanor, we'll settle for a low-level felony, they take it rather than going to trial. And that's called the trial tax. It's something that this office has in fact been sued over because people are told at a very early process they either need to take this plea agreement and sign away years of their lives or face a trial.
Well, let's talk about that lawsuit with the ACLU that she's referring to. A federal judge just last week ruled against the ACLU and found that our process was appropriate. Prosecutors have that ability. And as far as charge stacking, most times that is totally within the power of the judge. Even if somebody kills 2 individuals, the judge can choose to run those concurrently or consecutively. Where you see mandatory consecutive sentences have to do with child molestation, and I would certainly hope my opponent would not be advocating for more lenient sentences in that case.
The idea of mandatory minimum sentencing, though, does that take does that just take so much out of the judge's hands that it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense?
The judges still have access to a full range of sentences. The judges can conduct settlement conferences. I have told the judges, please contact us if you think it's inappropriate. So they have a lot of ability to affect a plea. But the reality is we didn't have mandatory sentences for a long time, and because of the disparity that they were seeing, the legislature made the decision to enact mandatory minimum sentences.
Right, but again, you say that's not a great... You disagree with that idea.
Well, may I please respond? Because
Please,
it's not just me and so many folks on the left who believe that this system is unjust. It's so many people on the right. It's folks like the Nolan Center. It's Right on Crime. It's Americans for Prosperity. They're all against the system of charge stacking. Really, the only people who are for it are the people whose friends and donors are getting rich off this private prison and private labor scheme here in Arizona.
Can it be argued that your ideas of redefining public safety are similar to what we've seen with the top prosecutors in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco, where they are reforms have been enacted and they haven't gone over all that well. How would you respond to someone who says, look at San Francisco, look at Los Angeles, we don't want that?
Well, hey, listen, it's not just people who believe that we need reform on the left. It's also people on the right who believe that we are in desperate need of reform. We waste money in a system that throws away lives and doesn't make us any safer. And until we're really willing to have a true discussion about root causes, we're not going to end up with a system that helps public safety at all. All we're going to do is repeat a cycle of recidivism that costs the taxpayers money.
How do you respond to that?
You know, I didn't hear an answer to your question, which was, how are you different from San Francisco and Los Angeles? And that's because she can't say the quiet part out loud. The quiet part out loud is she's exactly the same. San Francisco voted out somebody that was just like Julie Gunnigal because it was rampant crime. It was closing businesses. People didn't want to go there on vacation anymore. So when she's saying root cause, what she's talking about is taking money from the police, and she's tweeted that she wants to take $25 million out of the police budget. Let me tell you what happens when you do that. That's not going to take patrol officers off the street. That's going to take sex crimes detectives out of the advocacy centers, because I've seen it, and put them on the streets. And so we're going to have less people investigating crimes against children and women.
Do you support defunding the police?
No, that is not part of my platform. That's nothing I've ever tweeted. And you know what? The county attorney knows that. The county attorney has been in that office for 30 years and knows that during those 30 years, the office has never once passed a police budget. It has never once advocated for a police budget. The county attorney has nothing to do with funding police. And frankly, I am so offended that she would characterize support of a mental health program so that mental health first responders can respond to mental health cases in our community as something dealing with police funding.
Where is that going to come from? That's going to come from taking money away from the police. And you know it, and you've tweeted about supporting a $25 million reduction in Phoenix's budget.
That's absolutely untrue, and I'm so
We will
sorry.
be putting that on the media tonight to show where you've tweeted. And your campaign manager is Bruce Franks Jr., who not only wants to get rid of the police departments, but he wants to abolish, not empty, not reduce, but abolish prisons.
Okay,
that's your campaign manager.
We need a response to that.
Hi, I'm Julie Gunnigal. You're running against me and not my staff. My platform for reform is evidence-based. It's supported by both conservative and liberal thinkers, and it will save us money while keeping us safer.
We actually engage in
honest
evidence-based.
About that.
We engage in evidence-based. We have a very robust diversion program that is incredibly successful that I've expanded so that we can put fewer people in prison and have alternatives.
All right, I want to get moving here, and I want to ask you a question. And Julie, we'll start with you on this one. Will you prosecute alleged violations of Arizona abortion laws if the pre-state law comes into effect, or any other abortion law that bans abortion in ways that you don't agree with?
Well, it's not whether or not I agree. The question that is always asked to prosecutors is to pursue those cases that are in the interests of justice. And not now, not ever. It will never be in the interests of justice to invade Arizona's bedrooms and private lives to pursue these kinds of cases. The 1864 law that predates even Arizona statehood and even women having the right to vote criminalizes abortion and creates a mandatory minimum of 2 years in prison and a max of 5 for anyone accessing it. It also carries with it a misdemeanor law that criminalizes even the advertisement of contraceptives. We're not going to waste Arizona's money pursuing those charges.
Okay, so regardless of state law, you would not pursue those charges?
No, I wouldn't.
Would you pursue those charges?
I don't think that's responsible to say. When you are sworn in, as I have been as county attorney, you are sworn to uphold the law. That does not mean you file every case that comes in front of you. That means you evaluate every case that comes into you in terms of whether there's a reasonable likelihood of conviction. And I'm going to look at those because that's my responsibility, as I am with every other case. But look, Ted, I've spent my career protecting women and children. I have seen women impregnated by rape. I've walked walked with them to court. Same thing with children. So I'm very keenly aware of how emotional and difficult this situation is.
So you're talking, again, prosecutorial discretion here regarding abortion laws?
I use prosecutorial discretion every single day of my life, but that means I'm going to look at every case for whether there is a reasonable likelihood of conviction. What it does not mean is that I'm going to announce in advance that I'm not going to follow a law because I don't like it. That's not my role.
Julie, can you swear to uphold the law and then not prosecute certain laws?
Absolutely, because prosecutorial discretion is the law in Arizona. That is why this position is elected, and that is why I'm being upfront with voters about my commitment not to invade your private lives. Because I have zero faith as a mom of 2 young girls that our county attorney won't throw them in jail or prison for accessing an abortion. We saw who she is, and I believe when someone shows you who they are, that you should believe them. We saw her on the national stage betray victims, run cover for someone who is credibly accused of sexual assault, and install a Supreme Court justice onto that court for a lifetime appointment. And one of the first things that he did was overturn Roe v. Wade and strip us of our most basic rights.
Did you run cover in that situation?
Absolutely not. You know, when I was in law school, I saw the Anita Hill hearings, and I still to this day remember the irresponsible questioning that she underwent. I'm a national expert in how to interview victims of offenses like this. When I was asked, I jumped at the chance. And what I did when I questioned Dr. Ford was I questioned her responsibly, according to evidence-based practices, and reasonably, so that she was not attacked.
Charles Ryan was mentioned here somewhere along the line. What happened in that situation? An armed standoff, police saying that they felt fear, they were afraid for their lives. I mean, released on his own recognizance. I mean, the charges took forever. What's that all about?
You know, Ted, it is an ongoing case, so I have to be careful what I say. However, what I will say is when I took in office, it had not been reviewed yet. It had been staffed with the previous county attorney, and so I acted quickly on it because it had been pending. What I can say is that I looked at all of the facts, not just the ones on the media, not just the ones that, you know, sensationalize the situation, and talked to senior attorneys. I looked at every bit of body cam, I read every page of the police report, and I made the call.
Good enough for you?
Absolutely not. This is just more of the same. Listen, the wealthy, the powerful, the well-connected, and apparently the Ducey appointees get a special deal in our criminal legal system that no one else would have gotten if they went on a 3-hour tequila-fueled bender, holding their wife and daughter hostage and shooting at police.
That is not true. He did not shoot at them. He did not hold them hostage. He fired a gun off in his house at his sink. That is, if she said that as the county attorney, and this just goes to show what poor judgment she has, she said that she would be up on ethics charges because she is prejudicing the public against a defendant with an open case.
Could the office have done a better job of explaining why it took so long in the Ryan case?
When I took over, I immediately got to it, so that involved a previous administration. I got to it very quickly.
Good enough?
The office right now is in complete dysfunction. We have backlogs, not just in officer-involved shootings. We have backlogs in just everyday run-of-the-mill cases that have been waiting for over a year. And we see backlogs even in simple cases like DUIs. This is part of the dysfunction in the office, and it will not change until we see new leadership.
When I took over, there was an 800 case backlog that has been on ag DUIs. That is gone. I've reduced even the assessor's appeals. I have hired a lot more people. Every single number in that office is going the right direction. But, you know, Ms. Gunnigal is trying to take over an office that is 1,000 people. She's never supervised a single prosecutor. She has so little prosecution experience, she wouldn't even be qualified to be the lowest level supervisor in our office. And I still haven't heard about the bad judgment you used when you locked up a woman under an unconstitutional law for 18 months.
30 seconds left, so take it.
In no particular order.
In no particular order.
Everything you heard is untrue, but I will happily say that the case that I was involved in, where somebody was held on a low-level charge on very high bail and for a very long time inside a jail system that had inadequate access to health care, is on me. I have taken full responsibility, and anybody who touched that case, I sat third chair, got sued. That case is exactly why we need reform in our system, because people should not be being held for that long, and they should have access to basic health care in prison.
All right, that's it. It's time now for closing statements. And going in reverse order of our opening remarks, we start with Julie Gunnigal.
It's been my pleasure this evening to share a little bit about my vision for this office that has had management issues, corruption issues, and has cost the taxpayers an inordinate amount of money for a very long time. I do hope that you'll visit Gunnigal2022.com to see the people's plan for real justice of how this office can both keep our community safe and save us money. But most importantly, as we cast our ballots in November, it cannot be overstated that we should not be sending women and children to prison for their reproductive health care choices. I do hope that you will join me, Julie Gunnigal, in saying not now, not ever. We cannot have a prosecutor invade our private lives and bedrooms.
All right, thank you very much. And now the closing statement from Rachel Mitchell.
And I would ask you to go to my website, rachelmitchell.com, to look at some of the positions on the issues. What you need to know is what is on the ballot for this race, not the legislature, not the governor, is the safety of our community. Holding people accountable who commit violent and dangerous crimes has been what I have done for 30 years. And the majority of that has been protecting women and children. Julie Gunnigal's positions are not going to keep women and children safe. They're going to put fewer cops on the street, and you're going to have more criminals on the street. She has surrounded herself with people who do not respect women. Her campaign manager, and she can try to disavow him all she wants, her campaign manager has tweeted vulgar things about women and insulted them and mocked them when they would not engage in certain sex acts on Twitter. You are who you keep company with.
All right, but you have to stop you right there. Candidates, thank you both so very much. Programming note, our next debate will be next Wednesday, September 21st, as we hear from the candidates running for Congressional District 5. That's next Wednesday at 5 and 10 p.m. right here on Arizona Horizon. And a reminder that you can watch this debate again online at azpbs.org, where you can catch all of Arizona Horizon's past programming, along with live streaming of all of our shows. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.